Richard Linklater is undoubtedly one of the one of our top indie American auteurs. But why don't we greet a new Linklater with the same collective anticipation that we greet a new Tarantino or a new PTA or a new Wes Anderson movie?
Right.
I mean, this is the guy that made Slacker, Dazed and Confused, the Before trilogy, Waking Life, A Scanner Darkly, Boyhood.
He's good.
But I always feel like it's always like, oh, there's a new Linklater out, as opposed to like the PTA taking over Westwood for the release of Licorice Pizza. And it's the biggest thing in the indie universe. So I was thinking, because spoiler alert, I loved Hitman. We'll talk about that in a second. But I've just been wondering why there wasn't more sort of anticipation. I mean, I know there's been this great groundswell of support online, which is always great for a movie when you get the sort of viral, But why weren't we all waiting around like in line outside the theater for the new Linklater? He really leads with his like hippie chill vibe. He is now and forever and always has been the film student who stayed in the college town and became a townie and is the fun hippie to talk to at a bar who has a lot of great stories. But he is very, careful about not sort of presenting director bravado.
Well, he never lived in Hollywood, never wants to live in Hollywood. He's Austin till he dies.
I love it. He's not giving you Tarantino bravado. He's not giving you like PTA's like professorial phase that PTA is doing now. He's not dressing up like Bogdanovich or Wes Anderson. He is just the townie till he dies.
He's the beach bum.
And I love it. He's the beach bum. He reminds me a lot about when I went to college in Athens at the University of Georgia, and you would see Michael Stipe around town, and it was just like seeing the coolest fucking hippie you'd ever seen, just like walking around.
That's cool.
And it rules. There's nothing like a dude who stays in the college town and becomes like the king townie. And that is what Linklater is Linklater's on the Mount Rushmore of townies, I think, at this point. But now I'd like to tweak the narrative a little bit, because Hitman reminded me that underneath all the hippie chill, Linklater is a sly motherfucker. He is a sly, smart, interesting motherfucker who plays his cards close to his chest. He has just as much bravado and confidence as any of his contemporaries. Of course, he's getting movies made in 2024. He's fucking crazy. Those are the only people getting movies made. If I can quote Kevin Garnett, Linklater's got a fucking dog in him. He's got that fucking dog in him. He doesn't like to show it. He likes to, if you read interviews, he's always talking about collaboration, and Ethan and Julie and I worked so well together, and then the magic of the movies, and it's just this. He's got a fucking dog in him, and he knows how to make a fucking movie. I'm going to put Hitman in his top 5. I think Hitman is top 5 Linklater. I really, really like this movie because to me, Hitman, Joe's already shaking his head, because Hitman, I'm gonna tell him why though. And maybe he knows this and he just decided it wasn't good enough, but I'm gonna tell him why. Because Hitman does the same thing that Linklater does. It is a representation of the director. It plays the same game. It plays it cool at first. The first act, the first half of the movie, it plays it cool to lull you in, to create sort of comfortable expectations. Oh, what a nice little funny movie that I'm watching. And then when it has you at ease, it pulls some very fucking interesting moves out of its bag, kind of out of nowhere. And then and that dynamic of getting hit with interesting moves when you were just chilling out watching a chill movie, that's an exhilarating experience. I had a great time at Hitman, Joe, and I did a full 180 halfway through the movie, and I'll tell you about that a little bit later. But that's what I really enjoyed, is this movie changed fundamentally for me while I was watching it, not in retrospect, etc. While I'm sitting there watching the movie, I did a full 180 halfway through. But let's talk about real quickly the plot. This movie is about a sort of nerdy, bookish philosophy professor who starts to volunteer for the New Orleans Police Department. This is loosely based on a true story. And he stumbles into this very specific role where he pretends to be, he's undercover, he pretends to be a hitman. And so if you're looking to hire a hitman in New Orleans, you hire this undercover volunteer crime fighter, and then he has a wire, and then he gets you to admit that you're hiring him to kill somebody, and then they come in and arrest the person that's trying to, that's hiring the hitman, right? And it just turns out that somehow this like nerdy professor, like Liam Neeson says, has this very specific set of skills that make him very good at this job. The twist comes, though. The twist comes when he meets a very hot lady played by Adria Arjona, who I only knew from True Detective Season 2 as Taylor Kitsch's fiance.
My
right? Are you
God.
just putting that
Yes.
together? Yep. That is the only time
My God.
I double checked. I have not seen anything else
That's
she's been in.
right.
But she is definitely in True Detective Season 2. And then he falls. She wants him to kill her husband, but then he sort of talks her out of it because he's starting to like get attracted to her in the initial sting operation, and then they start to carry on this illicit relationship, and it gets complicated, and cops die. It gets wild, but they have they sort of develop a little Bonnie and Clyde thing. They're a little illicit, relationship on the sly, and I'll leave it at that. And then I think you should watch the rest of the movie and see how it turns out. The movie starts out, though, with, for the first half of the movie, I was like, because if you've been paying attention online, there's been this growing groundswell of support for Hitman. People are saying, like, check it out. It's a sleeper. Check it out. You're going to love it. It's a quirky little comedy, et cetera, et cetera. For the first half of the movie, I was like, I think this is a miss. I get what people like about it. Glenn Powell is basically just hiring Richard Linklater to film a reel, like a character reel for him. Glenn Powell is like real. Glenn Powell is basically like just like, I'm an actor. I'm not a handsome guy. He's screaming at you through the theater, through the screen. That's the first half of the movie, and I was like, fine, Glenn, yeah, you're great, and I know you co-wrote this, and that's awesome, but it just felt like a one-man Glenn Powell show, but I was like, this is a Richard Linklater movie. There's a high bar for Richard Linklater movies, and for the first half of the movie, it wasn't getting there for me. It wasn't getting anywhere near the heights of, the Before trilogy or Dazed and Confused or Slacker or anything, and there were also these like little absurd sort of things that you had to buy into, like Glenn Powell is doing like nerdy philosophy professor, and you're like, bro, I can see your calves through your khakis. Like your jawline is like,
I know,
Ozempic and creatine together.
It works, but it is funny because they give him glasses, and
Yes.
his hair's like a little like messy, and it's like, Glenn,
we can see you in there. I see you in there, Glenn.
they're just little glasses.
Yeah.
You look
Yeah.
great.
You're hot.
Yeah.
So for the first half of the movie, I was like, all right, fine. Like Glenn Powell's doing his like comedy movie, and he's doing his acting reel. He's trying to prove that he's more than just like handsome guy, whatever. But like, why did Richard Linklater have to be here for this? Like, it just felt like it was like missing the bar for me. And then Adria Arjona enters the movie, his love interest. And the movie does just like stopped in its tracks. Literally, Glenn Powell stops in his tracks and is like, holy shit. And then the whole movie starts to become something else. But I think it was what the movie was aiming towards the entire time. And even the fact of like making him a handsome guy in disguise becomes clear. Because the whole game that Glenn Powell was playing, I'm doing different characters, I'm having fun, it totally breaks down based on the presence of Adria Arjona, who I'll just go ahead and say is a tremendous actor who should be in a lot more movies and is the hottest woman you've ever seen in your life. And the movie acknowledges this, and suddenly a new game emerges in the movie, a new like movie within the movie. And that new game goes by the title of Sex is Everything. It's the only fucking thing that matters for humans, for movies, for everything. And I'm not just talking about fucking, and there's a lot of fun fucking scenes in the second half of this movie. I'm talking about like finding your sexuality in this like powerful fucking way that turns you into Glenn Powell literally like turns into the person he's impersonating because he like finds this like perfect like sexual partner. He becomes, and then suddenly the whole purpose of the movie becomes clear. He was a hot guy hiding under a philosophy professor.
Right.
That's why they did it.
Right.
They knew what they were doing. He was a fucking the hottest guy on the planet, but it took Adria Arjona coming into the movie for him to realize that's who he was. And then he is no longer impersonating a hitman. He is no longer playing cool guy, playing hot guy, playing dangerous guy. He literally becomes that person via his sexual attraction and just sort of general desire and full fucking mental, physical desire for Adria Arjona. And then you know, from that point on, to me, the movie is more than just a fun, quirky comedy. I think it does that at first to put you at ease, but then it becomes a movie about like passion and sex and desire, and about how those things can actually allow you to become, even if in your own mind, allow you to become the sexiest, coolest, like punkest version of yourself, and all the power that comes with that. And then after the movie makes that turn, it becomes wild. It's like dark and weird and interesting after that. Quick spoiler alert, I'm about to tell two things that you might not want to hear if you haven't seen the movie yet, but I'm going to say them anyway, but you've been alerted. These are two things that happen in the movie. Glenn Powell, this fun, quirky comedy that everyone's like, oh, Glenn Powell's fun in comedies. Here's two things that happen in the second half of this movie. Glenn and Adria fuck next to a dead cop. They literally fuck each other next to a dead cop, and the dead cop, who his only crime was like being a conniving dick. Like he wasn't even that corrupt. Right. He was just sort of a conniving. Yeah, he caught them and was sort of trying to play it to his advantage. They fuck beside the body of a dead cop. There's a final like montage where everything has turned out well and they're like married and they have kids and a family. And there is one of the great lines of this year in movies, maybe of all time in movies, where he says, so Gary was his philosophy professor, and then Ron was his like hot guy hitman character, right? And these are two, and he would constantly go back and forth between these two identities. And he has a line in this last montage where he goes, I eventually found the proper cocktail of Gary and Ron, which is like, we're almost in like unreliable narrator. Like we're in like the mind of a fucking, who is this person now? Like like Glenn Powell starts out as just Gary, as the nerdy philosophy professor, and we're ending with like fucking Walter White, Patrick Bateman levels of personal, like megalomania, personal fulfillment sort of shit. But there's like bodies in like he has a body count at this point. He doesn't even like care. This movie like takes a wild fucking turn in the second half. I loved every single second of it, and then I was glad afterwards that I was not just like, I don't know, seeing something that wasn't there, et cetera. Because I read this that Linklater said about the movie. Linklater said that he and Glenn Powell, who co-wrote the script, we've already said, they wanted to make the movie about, quote, passion. I said it's going to have sex, it'll be passionate, it'll be carnal, the desire that drives everything, Linklater said. Glenn's character starts off very dispassionate, but by the end of the movie, he's a different guy. He's discovered passion, and the movie has this strong chemistry and sexuality. I think, and you're going to love this is what Joe's always harping on, I think that's what's out of fashion. People say there's no sex in movies anymore, but there isn't adult in movies anymore as well, as sexuality in movies equals adult. When I was 13 years old and looking at movies, I thought the adult world looked pretty interesting. It looked fun, and I thought, I can't wait to get there. But it wasn't just the sex. It was the adult situations they showed. But somewhere along the way, Hollywood inverted that. It's like they said, we're going to make films where you can stay 13 forever. You can stay that little kid with little kid concerns. So I guess it drifted away as its complexities weren't the subject matter of mainstream cinema as it had before. So this is a movie that is also an interrogation of why movies aren't sexy anymore and why movies aren't for adults anymore. And this is a movie about how the movies can become that again. Much like Glenn Powell becomes his true self, his fucking dangerous, sexy, cool self. This is a movie about how the movies can become that again. And I'll tell you what, when this movie turns and they're doing like role play sex shit walking up the stairs, I was like, yes, the movies. This is what we come to cinema for. Joe, what'd you think of Hitman?
I liked it. No. Richard Linklater's Hitman was good. It was really good. Fun, charming, sexy, well-paced, well-made. It sort of reminded me of the same impulse that Fincher exercised when he made The Killer. He's like, you guys wanted me to make these kinds of movies. You want to see certain kinds of things. Everybody Wants Some. It didn't do, so hot. Boyhood was a while ago now. He had those the stop and start movies, Last Flag Flying, Where'd You Go, Bernadette Brett was talking about. And it was time to go kind of a return to form for Linklater. And he got his new guy, Glenn Powell, his buddy from Everybody Wants Some. And they wrote this cool, fun, hip movie where Glenn gets to do all of his characters and be charming as hell and handsome as hell and funny and sincerely funny. And Richard gets to put together a sexy, whip smart little crime movie, and he totally succeeds. Where I disagree with Brett is it feels very minor Linklater to me, but it also feels like a bit of a it feels like a bit of a reset for Linklater. Brett said this is in his top 5, and I wasn't going to interrogate it, but now he said wrong to me. So you said,
let's do top 5 real quick.
Yeah. Go ahead, bang them out. Right. I mean, okay, go ahead, bang them out. Name 5, 4. Right.
I'll name the 4. I'll name the 4 that are ahead of it.
Thank you.
Slacker, Dazed and Confused, Before Sunrise. That's it. Those are the 4 that are ahead.
Other ones that are better: School of Rock, Before Midnight, Boyhood, Everybody Wants Some. Even Bernie's better, but.
You think Everybody Wants Some is better than this?
Oh, Everybody Wants Some is in the top 5.
No.
So,
no.
Oh yeah.
No.
Oh yeah.
Everybody Wants Some is sort of is like a rough draft of Hitman. It's him like he's
it's like a spiritual sequel to Dazed and Confused. It's like another kind of restart. But I think what
it is a restart. It's not a spiritual sequel. It's him being like, how did I do Dazed and Confused?
No, there's not so much confusion. That is it's the same thing as Hitman. It's like confidence.
Did I do it like this?
Sexy confidence. But the thing about Hitman is I think kind of the trouble with Glenn Powell, which is like Glenn, I think it's almost time. It's almost time to like get out of college and time to move on. I know he's trying to, and I know he's playing the game perfectly, and I know it's all part of the plan. And he goes right in the pocket here. He gets to write a script to show off his SNL reel of all of his kooky characters that he can do for the Hitman.
That's the first half. It's a setup though. It's a setup for the Switch.
And that is very effective and good, but I am very ready for Glenn to do something more. I am afraid Glenn Powell recently has had a couple big movies. He was in Top Gun Maverick, where he didn't, he was handsome and he played the bad guy, but he didn't steal the show. Teller and Tom Cruise, that was their movie, and Glenn played like a deep, deep third fiddle, maybe fourth after Jennifer Connelly. He had the Sydney Sweeney rom-com. He had
it cost him an actual relationship in real life.
No, did it really? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Whatever.
It was his Passengers.
Oh yeah. Okay. So he had his Sydney Sweeney, and then he had the Linklater, Everybody Wants Some movies, and he's cute and funny. And now in Hitman, it's like I'm cute and funny and starring it. And then if you watch the Twisters trailer, obviously I haven't seen it yet, but it seems like he's like a wily, dick swinging maverick Texas guy. Looks like a lot of fun, but it doesn't look like it's his Oscar round. That's fine. It's all good. It's all part of the plan. But in the next 2 years, I need to see your Oscar bait movie, Glenn.
No.
I know. I do.
Don't listen to Joe. Don't listen to Joe.
Glenn, come here.
Don't listen to Joe.
Come here.
Glenn, stay away from Joe.
Handsome.
Stay away. Come listen to me. Come listen to me. You tell him first, and I'll tell him you tell him what you need to tell him first.
Glenn, I really think you have it. I think you're really great. But people think that you lack depth because you've been a child actor for a very long time. You've been acting your entire life, and you've stayed true to yourself. You've picked great projects. I know you're a pilot. I love that you produced Blue Angels. You did the Maverick thing. You can fly a plane. I get that you're nice and hot, but it reminds me of, when my parents got a dog. It was like the happiest dog I've ever seen, and it hit me like, oh, this dog hasn't experienced anything bad ever. And Glenn, I'm sure you've had your ups and downs, but you're very attractive. I need you to age a little bit. I know you had got the divorce or the breakup with Gigi Paris or whatever. I'm sure that hurt, but you've rebounded with this amazingly hot woman in Hitman.
He's fine.
I need you to suffer. I need you to cry. I need you to be hurt. I need you to get bested. I love you. I want to root for you, Glenn. I want you to be one of the guys, but I need some ruggedness. I need a little more definition, and I can't wait to watch you grow. But if you do 2 more years of Hitman, silly, you're in big trouble with me.
Glenn, listen to me.
Glenn,
listen to me. Glenn, listen to me. Listen to me. Joe wants to make you in his own image. I want you to be yourself, okay? And the way that you be yourself is to listen to Richard Linklater, because you actually don't know yourself. So what Richard Linklater did to you in this movie that was great, don't find yourself, okay? I'm going to tell you who you are. First half of this movie, you're like, oh, maybe I can be like, maybe I'm like Joaquin Phoenix. Maybe I'm like sort of like Wacky Boy. Maybe I'm like the Wacky Boy with the different characters. You're not Wacky Boy, okay? You're hot as fuck. I want you to look at what Tom Cruise did in 1999. I want you to look at how Tom Cruise, because you might be able to.
This is what I'm saying, Brett.
All right, but do it on my terms, though. No, don't do it on Joe's terms, okay?
You're just agreeing with me, but
because
you want the credit. Okay.
Because the way you can get to, because I'll tell you what, Glenn, the first half of this movie where you're doing wacky characters, I was barely there.
I was charmed. I liked the movie the whole way through. It's charming.
It's charming, but
it was funny. It was cute. My mom would clap.
Here's what's happening to your ceiling though. It's going
thank you.
I want it to be up here because when you lean into your power in the second half of the movie, okay, look. Sexual charisma is not a fucking crime, okay? We need to get our brains straight on this, okay? That is a fucking powerful thing that you have. And you can still do complexity. You can be, I mean, you can be, you know what I want to see you in? I want to see you in like a fucking like Body Heat remake, my man. I want to see you really lean into that fucking power.
That would be a good reach too.
I want you to
branch
into that
out.
power.
I agree.
Look at Tom Cruise in 1999. The guy is doing big time auteur Oscar bait movies, but he is not sacrificing his brand, okay? He's not doing. He does a little bit of a costume for Magnolia, but he's not doing a costume. You get Tom Cruise in Magnolia, you get Tom Cruise in Eyes Wide Shut. You get all of that power, all that fucking sexual charisma and power slightly modulated for a big time auteur Oscar movie. That's what I want to see you do. I don't want to see, you're not Joaquin, you're not even really Jake Gyllenhaal. I want you to like really lean into that fucking A-list charisma you got. Just find the right projects to apply it to. Add some sinister elements to it. I think it could play dark. I think it could play violent. I think it could play scary. I liked what I saw in the second half of Hitman. I think you got a career there,
I think you're just building off what I said because you want him to reach too.
Yes.
You just have specific.
That's right.
Specific ideas.
Boundaries for it. Yes.
Well, that's really all there is. I think you covered a lot of what's great about Hitman, and I really do feel like Richard Linklater is still as himself as ever with Everybody Wants Some and Hitman. And if he wants, I think about Hitman was like it felt to me like Linklater wasn't trying to hit a grand slam. He wasn't like swinging as hard as he possibly could. He just like put the ball in play.
That's what he wants you to think.
No, it's
you fell for his trap.
Well, then your trap worked, but I'm just telling you,
your trap worked.
It's a minor work. It's very fun. It's very charming.
It's not a minor work.
It is. Oh, minor Richard Linklater work. I mean, like it's really good. He's one of the best we have. God bless him.
Better than the baseball movie. That's crazy.
It really is
crazy.
All right.
Let me just give you one final thing that happens in Hitman that I fucking love.
Yes.
There's a moment near the end of the movie where he gets caught and Adria Arjona realizes that he has been a cop this entire time undercover and that he's really some like nerdy philosophy professor named Gary. There's an incredible line where like she hears his name said and she's like, who the fuck is Gary? Like she's had this intense relationship with Ron for like months. And then she finds out it's just a philosophy professor named Gary and he's not a hitman. He's never killed anybody. This should be like, not only is that a hard moment, like that's the end of in real life, that's the end of the relationship. You get a restraining order. You never see that person again, ever. In the movie, obviously they have to get them back together. And that's a very tough hurdle for the movie to get over. It's like, how do I get Adri, how do I get her back with Glenn Powell after she's realized that he's been lying to me this entire time and that the person he really is checks no boxes. Ron checks all my boxes. Gary checks none of my boxes. And the way they get them back together is he agrees because the cops are also like leaning on him to nail her because she's trying to, they think she killed her husband. She did kill her husband. So he comes back into her house and he's wearing a wire for the cops. So they have audio being recorded, but they don't have video being recorded. And so he starts showing her notes on a notes app. You remember?
I do remember. Yeah. The major plot point. Yeah, I remember this part.
He's showing her notes on a notes app that say like they're telling her what's going on. Like, hey, pretend like the cops are listening. Don't say this. Say this. Do this to me. He's like coaching her through the notes app. And there's a moment while this is happening where she starts like betraying these like little smiles, and you realize she's fucking into him again. She's like getting turned on by this like game. And you realize that he's getting turned on by it too. And it's such an amazing way to get them back together. Where Richard Linklater is like, I'm not going to get them back together through like an plot
apology,
point
right.
or an apology. I'm going to get them back together through the magic of their shared sexual charisma. And it's like, it is that.
You know what's so funny, Brett?
What?
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, please.
Just real quick. There's like, I feel like Glenn Powell is hot, but I understand that like they're both very attractive and she was being very sexy. I don't think Glenn is like, of course he's insanely hot. He's
tell me
a
what
god.
you think. Tell
He's
me
a
what you
god.
think.
He's amazing.
No, but be honest.
In this Hitman movie, I didn't find him like so sexy. Like in Challengers, like Josh O'Connor and Mike Feist, like they were like sexy. And in Hitman, it's like Glenn is so nice. His like charmingness is like kind of disabling. And though he like plays Ron, the hitman. He never and he's got big muscles when he like grabs her and stuff. And he is hot. I'm with you, but he's not giving me like, I know they kept saying, oh, I'm finding my power, and he's having, sex and he's finding his sexual power. But Glenn's not like some like world class, like sexual, like, it just doesn't almost work.
But
he's too nice or something.
Here's the thing. Here's why it works for me is because it is a shared sexuality. It's them together. Okay. It's the thing that happens when they're in the same room and they just can't, like, even like after she knows all of this stuff, but then when he's doing the phone apps and he's like trying, because I think the thing that people are all like, the sexiest thing in the world is to have like a partner in crime, to have like someone who you share some sort of like illicit thing with. You're
Bonnie
sexually attracted to them.
Gone crazy.
You're also like against the fucking world together.
Sure.
Right? A bad relationship is bureaucratic. A bad relationship is good for society because it's about reproducing and buying stuff. But a good relationship, I think, is a fucking war against society because it's about fighting boredom and monotony and exploitation. Society wants all your pleasure to be monetized, and a good relationship is like, we're gonna hoard our pleasure between the two of us, and you don't get any of it. We don't need to buy anything or do anything because the greatest pleasure we can imagine is just being with each other and just doing our insane fucking sex on each other.
Man, you really liked Hitman. It's like a good movie. It's for fun. It's like a chocolate on the pillow.
This movie,
Brett really liked
this movie. Fucking rules. Okay, Hitman is great. It turned me around. I was like sitting there halfway through, being like, "Oh boy, I'm just watching Glenn Powell's SNL fucking audition."
That's right.
And then the second half, I was like, "Nope." I'm watching. I didn't know what I was watching, and now I do, and it's burrowing into me.
Well, check it out on Netflix because you can't watch it in the movie theater, unfortunately, because it's a Netflix movie.
Hey, Ted Sarandos, go fuck yourself,
Whoa.
you loser! What are you doing?
Don't be mean to Ted.
What are you
mic.
doing? What the fuck are you doing?
Ted's trying. He said Ted's son said that he watched Lawrence of Arabia on his phone, and it was great.
Just
watch movies on your fucking phone.
This is true. Ted's son watched Lawrence of Arabia on his phone and said it was fine.
Said that was great.
And then Ted said that out loud.
And Ted, in defense of like streaming, was like, "My son watched Lawrence of Arabia on his phone. He loved it."
Hey, Ted, you know why you're a fucking moron? Is because guess what I went and watched Hitman in theaters. I paid money to go watch it in theaters. Guess what I'm going to do this weekend when it comes out on Netflix? Watch it fucking again on Netflix.
That means Ted wins.
No, Ted does not win because he did a limited release. As we're going to see.
Oh, you're like, you should have put it. Okay, I see.
When we look at the box office at the end of this episode, guess what you're not going to find, Joe, in the top 50 box office this weekend? Hitman.
I believe
because it was
you,
on
but
one
that sounds
screen.
crazy.
That's fucking insane. You should have done a wide release. Everyone would have saw it and loved it.
Right.
And then when it came out on Netflix, they would have watched it again, and you would have made twice the money.
It would have made like $12 million this weekend.
Dick.
I don't understand. I actually legitimately business-wise do not understand.
Don't get it.
Why they wouldn't.
I don't understand it.
They own it. Why wouldn't they do the theatrical distribution? And then when it comes time for VOD, you just don't let any other platform have it. So like you can't buy it on Apple, you can't buy it wherever on Amazon. You just can get it on Netflix. What is the harm?
Do you not understand that people watch
good
movies multiple times?
I don't understand.
Do you not understand the entire history of video rentals?
It's like, just collect $20 million on top of the streaming. It's like, do you really think that all of those people that saw Hitman in theaters are going to unsubscribe from Netflix or something because they already saw it in the movie theater? I don't understand. I actually don't. Ted, if you could come down to our office and explain it to me, that would be in best of both of our interests, I think.
You remember that movie Shadow of the Vampire where Willem Dafoe played Nosferatu?
Yeah.
I saw that movie in theaters.
Okay.
It a good movie, not like a particularly fast, like, sort of like, groundbreaking, seminal movie, but a good movie. I watched that movie in theaters. And then 6 months later, I was in Blockbuster and I was walking around and I saw it for rent. I was like, oh, yeah, that was good. There was like that one scene I wanted to watch. Like, what was that scene? You know what? I'll just rent this and watch that again just to make sure I can get
You
see
were
that
like,
scene again.
halfway through, this actress came in. I did a 180. It was all of a sudden my favorite top 5 Linklater movies.
And that Shadow of a Vampire, dude, I loved Hitman. I watched this in theaters. I watched it on Netflix. You're leaving money on the table.
So I'm watching the movie, and it's like, B+. It's fine. I'm wondering what's... Then this actress comes in. This is a top 5 Linklater.
It is. And you know who...
This is better than Boyhood.
You know who agrees with me about that? Richard Linklater. I've never... You know how satisfying it is to have like a thought? Just you're watching the movie and you have a thought about the movie, and then you go and read and the director says exactly what you're thinking. And I was like, Richard, we're on the same fucking wavelength, baby. Keep making these movies. I love them.
Never stop. Why would he? He's never going to... He's one of our best. I like Hitman. Everyone should check it out. It's completely enjoyable, good
I'm
movie.
shocked
Can't
because
miss.
what he said is like he literally did your
But
manifesto.
I know. That quote is amazing, and the quote furthermore about how the infantilization of like modern
that's
American
your manifesto.
culture. I agree with him 100%. But I just think that
This movie doesn't do that.
no. This movie does that. It just isn't the be all end all of that. It's just another piece of the puzzle. I like the movie very much. I'm glad it was for adults. I had a blast watching it, and so did everybody in my theater. I really really liked the movie. I just
Interesting.
It just like it had this like charming little like cap on it, some sort of like limitation, and I couldn't quite deduce what it was. Like, it's not Linklater's filmmaking. It's not quite Glenn Powell or any of his actors. The script's fun. I just think it was kind of it had like the vibe of a thing that they wrote together during COVID, and now it's coming out and it's really good because they're all talented. It doesn't feel essential enough. It doesn't feel urgent enough. I like a trifle and I like a sexy trifle, but it's sexy because she's wearing like an outfit of a air hostess. Like, that's sexy. I get that. I'm not blind, but I don't know. I wasn't like tantalized sexually, other than just being like hot person.
It's not just the way she looks.
But I'm not mad about it.
14-year-old boy. It's like the entire
I get it.
performance and the
they have
dynamic
wonderful
and
chemistry.
the look.
They're very nice together. It's a very pleasant film. I just can't sit here and be like, this is the greatest movie I've ever seen. But I'm really glad that you think so.
It's not even the best movie Linklater. It's my 5th Linklater.
Oh, now it's 5th.
Well, I've always had it.
It'll be 6 by Basement Takes, our new show on Patreon.
Check it out.
Check it out.
It will not. It's going to stay at 5. It might rise when I go back and watch it on Netflix again, which I was going to do anyway. And I think Joe's going to revise his take when he also rewatches it on Netflix.
I'll rewatch.
Sounds like his audience was dumb. It sounds like he had a dumb audience.
But that's just like your way of like just calling me dumb without saying it. I think the audience Joe was surrounded by must have been
the audience
stupid.
sways you a little bit.
No, my audience
It sounds like you had a dumb audience.
It just wasn't. It didn't like. It just like. It was totally fine. It just like hit a bunch of beats. It did a bunch of fun tricks, and it was over. And it was nice. And I went home and I said, "How was Hitman?" I was like, "It was really nice. Just check it out. It was fun."
All right. I think the big difference is I understand what you're talking about, but I read that as like an intentional sort of lulling you to sleep for a couple real interesting.
I think there's value
punches.
in just like a hang film. I think there's value in like a
do
good
too.
crack.
But I think this lulls you into a hang film and then hits you with a couple things.
I didn't really read.
Were you not listening when I said they fuck next to a dead cop?
I listened to you. Also, but by the way, that suggests like there was, very quickly. Yes, yeah, it's okay. It's good.
Joe's gonna rethink
what do you want me to say?
Already rethinking.
No, I'm not. I'm actually like tripling down. It seems like it's like the 10th or 11th best Linklater movie.
What?
And I'm worried about Powell.
You ain't got to worry about Glenn Powell.